Attorney General Garland did push back on the idea that he would redact or doctor this in any way. He said this to journalists reportedly, quote, "The idea that an attorney general would edit or redact or censor the special counsel's explanation for why the special counsel reached the decision the special counsel did, that's absurd." What do you make of his response?
You know, I would like to have faith in him. However, as you've seen play out over the last couple of years with President Trump, his family, and his allies, I don't have faith in the Department of Justice, and neither do the American people. In fact, if you look at polling, you're seeing that a lot of people believe that there is a two-tier justice system. And so if he has nothing to hide, then give us the recordings. I don't understand why there's been such a back and forth, but that's not his decision to make. Congress has asked for something by committees that are running investigations, and he is not given the authority to interfere with those investigations. And I would also give further pushback and say that he recently penned a letter to the Washington Post trying to argue his case in a public format. However, I find it very interesting that the Washington Post on a number of occasions has put out hit pieces on Republicans, to include myself, and that they also try to reach out to our office to try to antagonize us shortly after he wrote that letter. So what you're seeing is you're seeing kind of a messy game of politics play out before the November elections, and I don't really care who you are. You're not above the law, and we'll hold you accountable.
I want to remind our viewers what was in Special Counsel's Hur report. He found that President Biden, quote, willfully retained classified materials after his presidency, but he also believed that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. He also described President Biden as a, quote, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The White House counsel said this about Republicans' attempt to get the tapes released. Quote, "The absence of a legitimate need for the audio recordings lays bare your likely goal, to chop them up, distort them, and use them for partisan political purposes." What's your response to that? Is this political? Is this partisan? Is the only reason Republicans want them to chop them up, use them in ads from now till November?
No, in fact, I would even push back and say this. In the event that those recordings come out, and that they are not redacted and that they are as they seem to be, I would be the first person to say that I was wrong. However, I believe that the American people deserve to hear those recordings. And I think that that is, just like I have privilege to see what they are, I think that that's the American people's privilege as well. And so I think that that's obviously an effort to try to protect the president, which is exactly why they also tried to exercise executive privilege, but that's also too late because they had already, quote unquote, released transcripts. So we should be able to hear what those recordings are.
Reports indicate that Merrick Garland won't receive any punishment if this contempt vote passes because President Biden asserted executive privilege on these tapes. So knowing that, what is the point of the vote?
So I believe the point of the vote is to show the American people, and we'll see if the Department of Justice is indeed blind and will hold the Attorney General in some form of punitive action. However, I do believe that there is a check and balance, and that would be the inherent contempt motion. So remember those two types of contempt. There's criminal contempt, which goes to the Department of Justice, which is exactly what you're saying. It's not likely that Merrick Garland will be in trouble for what he's done. And then there's inherent contempt of Congress, which allows us as the legislative body to hold him criminally accountable. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do, is bring back that accountability. You know, there seems to be a lot of people who have forgotten that Congress has this toolkit. This is not something that we just made up and pulled out of thin air. This has been something that has been in our legislative toolkit really since Jefferson wrote Jefferson's Manual, so since the founding of our country. And unfortunately, I think that what has happened is even over the last, maybe 60, 70 years, no one could really anticipate that the partisan bureaucrats would weaponize the justice system the way that they have. But that's exactly why I think some of the genius goes back to who actually founded our country and the check and balance that they put on these different factions that currently exist within our government. And so we actually have the ability to bring back accountability. And that's why so many people are, starting to talk about what inherent contempt of Congress is, and really, has it been done? Will it be successful? I think either which way, though, the American people deserve to know what's happening up here. And I think that this will be a pretty transparent vote.
So